There is, I was gonna say, uh, you probably, I don't know if you can see her or not, if she's on your screen, but I just want to welcome Judith Tolles. She is our newest member to our team. We are actually starting a Spanish-speaking team,
Mhm.
and she's from Argentina, living in Michigan. And it's gonna be one of our Spanish-speaking coaches. So we'll now be coaching people who don't speak English at all, and only speak Spanish. Um, so we have all of our materials being translated, as well as we'll be conducting online trainings only in Spanish, as well as coaching only in Spanish. So if that's something you feel um, like you know somebody that would benefit from, or your organization might be interested, um, please just shoot me an email, Russell at tailoredfundraising.com, and we can hop on a Zoom call and chat about what that looks like. So, oh, thanks, Jessica. That's nice. Okay, it's 5 after. We really have so much to do.
We
But
totally do.
hopefully, Jessica, if people come in, could you brief them in the chat kind of where we are as far as, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Like
can do that.
the rhythms and whatever. Um, I haven't introduced myself. My name is Russell, and I'm the CEO of Tailored here and founder. Um, and then we have Deb, who's on with us, who's going to be leading this workshop with me. And then we have Jessica, who's going to be managing the chat and the slides. And of course, we have Judith. Judith is actually going to be participating today. So they're going to be a couple of lucky individuals who get to go into a breakout room with her and hear stories. But today's workshop, we're going to do three things. We're going to teach you how to tell two kinds of compelling stories. Then we're going to demonstrate how to go from sharing a story to inviting someone into partnership. And we're also going to um, follow up this webinar or this workshop by giving you a tool that will help you fully develop your own messaging. So, storytelling is a piece of sharing your message. We're going to show you how that fits in the entire message. And then we're going to give you a tool to help you kind of develop things out other, in addition to your stories. Um, if you have headphones, please use them. You're already doing great on keeping on mute when you need to. Um, there will be several times we ask for response, so please be prepared to chime in and with your answers in the chat box. When we ask a question, we really do want everyone to respond if you can. This, of course, is not a webinar. And so this is a workshop. Everyone's on camera. You're going to be put into breakout rooms in pairs at several points in the workshop, and you're going to be sharing stories with the other person. So, for that reason, we are requiring that all participants be willing to share their stories with. You're going to be creating stories, and you need to be on camera. Um, because we're recording today's workshop, if you are in a secure location or unable to be on video for any reason or just not able to participate, I'm just going to ask that you hop off the call and you can just watch the recording when we post it to our YouTube channel in a few days. So that might sound harsh, but this is a workshop where everyone's participating.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. So we find that the most effective messaging includes stories. What are some of the reasons for this? Go ahead, let's right off the bat, stick some of your answers in the chat box. Makes what makes stories so powerful in a presentation? They're memorable, yes, relatable, memorable, engaging. Yeah, people can their hearts and their heads get involved. They're personal. Yeah, this is great, you guys. Yes, people can identify with them. They're true. They can put themselves in the place where they're not. I love that. I love that so much. Well, in our experience, we find that a lot of missionaries don't really understand their story as God's story, and they don't
Mm.
understand fundraising. actually as an invitation to worship God and what God has done. In fact, it's really the last thing on their minds. One Sunday, Josh, who was a missionary who was raising funds, spoke at this local church about the ministry that God was calling him to, where he was going, and why he was going to this predominantly Muslim people group to use his God-given medical skills to share about Christ and his love for the lost. And as he was leaving, I love this, this guy followed him outside, and he was an engineer, and what he heard challenged him to reevaluate his own life and his own values. And he concluded that he would like to use his engineering skills to serve God in world missions. And Josh was totally astounded because this young man didn't hear a request for money or a missionary asking people to get behind his ministry. Instead, what he heard was an invitation to recognize Christ's lordship over his life and to surrender and to worship him. Here, Josh was thinking that he was in the church to raise support, and he had no idea that sharing his story was, in fact, inviting others into an experience of worship and surrender. So, the fundraising journey is a unique opportunity for God to take the center stage. And this happens as you connect people not with what you're doing, but with what God is doing both locally and globally. The core of your presentation should be sharing stories of what God is doing, whether it's from your own personal experience or it even could be the experiences of your teammates. Sharing these God moments helps potential partners grasp your passion and also the vital importance of joining God in His work. God stirred in your heart to pursue something greater. And when you invite others into moments of worship, you create opportunities for Him to stir in their hearts as well. And in our workshop today, we want to help lead you through the steps of preparing or strengthening your stories in ways that help draw your potential partners' attention to God. And as they enter into worship, the Holy Spirit's going to use these divine encounters to transform their lives and to build your team. Today, we're going to help you develop two different types of stories that you can use in a presentation that you're going to share with others. The first one is your calling story. The calling story tells how we've been called into ministry, or for some of you who've been on the field for some length of time now, it's how God has called you to where you are right now. So it's where we talk about specific events or conversations, could be relationships, circumstances, maybe it's scripture that God's really used to lead you to serve in this way. So most of the time, when someone talks about their calling, it sounds a lot like this. Russell, Russell, are you muted? Yes, you're muted. Unmute yourself.
One would think that I know how to unmute myself. Yeah, most of the time it sounds like something like I accepted the Son into my heart when I was about 7 and I was baptized right away. And then in high school, I heard someone speak about overseas work and thought, yeah, that's really interesting. But I forgot about it until I went to college. And then
Here
it
we go.
just came
Okay.
to me.
Enough, enough. Right. So
Thanks, Dad.
there's nothing wrong with how Russell shared that calling, but there's also not, sorry, Russell, something very interesting about it. Basically, what Russell just did was he just shared a bunch of information and he also shared it in a chronological way. So now, Russell, I want you to do take two and I want you to share a calling story in a much more engaging way.
Sure. Well, in the fall of 1999, I was walking across my college campus, headed to a chapel service. I wasn't really looking forward to chapel. It was held in a gymnasium. The seats were very hard. And we had this praise band as you did in the late 90s. And it just wasn't that great, to be honest. And like the sound just reverberated everywhere. But I sat down, it was after worship, and um, we had a special speaker. Her name was Leanne. And she was with an organization that I will call on this workshop a Great Commission to Asia. And as she began to speak, something really strange happened. It was like somebody had put their hands over my ears and everything was muffled and I could barely hear her. And it was the strangest thing. But I did start hearing God speak to me during that time. And he was saying, Russell, I want you to go to Asia. I want you to teach English. I want you to tell those students about Jesus. And I'm sure that we had this interesting conversation, me and God, about how I'm not sure, how I might be excited, um, and that it's just a big question mark and unknown. And I love adventure, but this would be a big step. Uh, After that conversation with God, the hands over my ears came off, and Leanne was just ending her talk. I look around and I thought, did anyone else have this experience? That was really insane. And everyone was just kind of going about their normal lives. So I left that chapel service, you know, not knowing, actually knowing where I'd be going and what I'd be doing. I just didn't know when.
That's awesome. You see, like God in that calling story, God calling Russell through a different series of events. Much, much better. Thanks, Russell. That was awesome. Well, we're going to try to help you with some storytelling principles. We like to use analogies. So we're going to talk about telling a good story like taking a good photograph. So when you're taking a photograph, like you can practice even on your smartphone. In a photo, you have to think about what's going to be included in the shot and where the focus is going to be. So it's the same concept when we're telling a story. So let's focus on four different storytelling guidelines that are going to help us do just that. So you may want to take some notes. That's perfectly fine. The first thing that we want to do is focus, right? So we're going to focus on a specific incident. And we focus by telling people in our very first sentence when the story took place, where the story took place, and who the story is about. If your calling story is about a time when you were reading a biography and you felt compelled to go, then start by telling us something like, my junior year of high school, I was up late one night reading in bed, dot, dot, dot. Let's think about the focus of Russell's story. Let's dissect it a little bit. So, when did this story take place? I was listening, and it was fall of 1999. Where did the story take place? It was on Russell's college campus. And who was the story about? Obviously, it was about Russell.
Hey, Deb, can I just say something that I love to tell the people I work with about stories in this focus?
Sure.
Um, when you are able in this first sentence, it seems such a little thing to put these few things in the first sentence. When you're able to do that, it becomes a movie in somebody's mind. So when I shared that first line, all of you who are listening, in your mind, you saw me walking across the college campus, and then you were with me the rest of that story, and it was actually playing in your mind in the rest of that story, and that is how you begin an engaging story that people want to listen to and actually can experience with you.
Yeah, you're setting the stage for them. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, and then, all right, the next thing that we have to do is we're going to crop it to the right length. So, experience has taught us that when we're telling a verbal story, 2 minutes is often the right length. So, as you begin meeting with people and telling them your stories, you may find that the right length is slightly different for you. But for the sake of this training, we are going to practice telling stories that are about 2 minutes long. If we only have 2 minutes, then we have to think about what details we're going to include in the story, but we also have to think about what details are we going to exclude so that we can help people actually see the focus of the story. As somebody asked in the chat, what if you were called over the course of many years? I usually tell my clients, what was the moment of surrender? Like when did you go, yes, Lord, I'm going to join you in that. Um,
I was just answering that in the
okay.
chat. Yeah, so what you usually want to do in that is you choose that specific incident. The specific incident is where you said, yes, I'm going to go. And so you're saying who, when, where did that incident happen? And then what you're going to do is give context to that. So who, when, where, specific incident, you know, but it actually started a few years before that when I was doing this. And then interestingly enough, that led to this, so you start, it still needs to be a specific incident. And that's probably where the, not even just the moment that step, where were we? Were we in a church service? Were we in a conversation with somebody? Um, yeah.
Right.
So it
You're gonna
began when I,
oh, go ahead.
yeah. So Debbie says at ages 8, 16, 19, and 25. When I was 25 years old, this is what happened. Da, 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 da. But it actually started when I was 8. Um, so you can do it that way. We gotta keep moving.
Yeah, you're going to listen to mine in a minute, and I will tell you the moment of surrender, but then I'm going to take you out and give you context and then jump right back into
Right.
the so you'll be able to see an example of what that looks like in just a minute. But okay,
Right.
so we focus, then we crop it to the right length. The next thing we need to do is develop a good ending line. Can someone tell me in the chat what happens if we haven't thought about the way we're going to end our story? What happens? Come on, don't be shy. You weren't shy. It never ends. That's right. It just keeps dragging and dragging and rambling and rambling. Yes, we don't want to do that, right? Um, we don't know how to stop it. We might draw several conclusions and lose the impact of the story, all different kinds of things. So before we even begin the story, it's really helpful to actually develop that good ending line so that we know where to land the plane. So for example, in a calling story, it might be something like, from that moment on, I knew that I was going to be involved in overseas work. Or when I heard about the work that Jem was doing in Estonia, I knew where I was headed. Russell's ending line was something like, I knew where I was going, but I just didn't know when I was going. And that's how he landed the plane. And then it would take him right into like the organization that he was working with. All right, the final thing that we want to do, this is my favorite part of storytelling, is using color. It's similar to when you're on your phone and you have all those really cool filters that you can choose from. Like you could put a mustache on somebody, you could make it sepia toned, all different kinds of color and details. So the idea here is not to change the story to make it appear like it's something that it's not, but instead we want to think about how to make the story more vibrant. So we talk about using color as using the five senses. So what did you see? What did you hear? What did you taste? What did you smell? What did you feel? You don't necessarily have to use all of them, but we want to choose our words in such a way that we are painting a picture for the person who's listening, like they're sitting right next to us. So some of the color that was in Russell's story, you guys want to put some of the color, see if you all are paying attention in the chat?
Made it sound like a test.
Yeah, oh,
Oh, but hey, they were listening.
they were.
I love it.
Noise, music, muffled. Good, Chrissy. Chrissy was listening. A plus, she's one of my clients. Yeah. Fall of 1999, walking me across campus, fall day. Hey, Michael.
Yeah.
Um, God
God
speaking.
speaking.
Yep. Good, great. That's awesome, you guys. Okay. And also wondering if other people had that same experience. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm gonna tell my calling story and be paying attention because it's a little bit different. It's actually it's really similar to Russell's, but I've got a little bit of different details in how I tell mine. Okay, so for me it was dusk on a very cool day, my junior year of college, and I too was walking on campus. I was walking along this beautiful brick sidewalk that led to the chapel where we were all, like everyone on campus, was going to this all college convocation. And inside the chapel, there were about 2,000 students. We were all filing into the pews to hear from a man named Tony Campolo. Don't know who he is. He's an evangelical pastor. He's also a really popular speaker who's known for his controversial views on the teachings of Jesus. And at that point, I was a fairly new believer, and I just could not wait to hear the man speak. But little did I know that what he was about to say would be the very thing that God would use to turn my world upside down again. And I say again because just a short time before that, I'd really been living life on my own terms and pursuing my own plans. But he had recently brought me to himself, and I'd begun seeking his will for my life instead of my own. And I felt like he was calling me to be a high school English teacher. So I switched gears and I pursued degrees in both English and education. So as I headed into the chapel that night, I knew it was going to be big, but I had no idea how big or even how personal it was going to be. At one point, it was like there was nobody else in the chapel, and he was speaking directly to me. And he said, "For you teachers out there, why in the world would you want to bang your head against a wall teaching kids who think that they're doing you a favor by doing their homework when you could teach the thousands of kids who are overseas who are so hungry to learn, but who don't have any teachers? There are literally hundreds of teachers lined up and willing to take your place in the States, but very few who are willing to go." At that point, it was like this crystal clear question of God asking me, "Will you go?" And I said yes. And I had no idea where God was going to take me or what it was going to look like, but I was super eager and excited to find out.
Thanks, Deb.
You're welcome.
That's wonderful. I love hearing that story, even though I've heard it many times. So we're going to take some time right now for you to actually develop your calling story in this format. You're going to focus on a specific incident with who, when, and where, and so on and so forth. So hear me out, and you may want to write this down because it's not on the slide. The way I develop a story is I start with my specific incident and I create a sentence that's who, when, and where. Then under that, I I put bullet points of things that I want to remember. And I'm not writing things out. I'm not, not making a script. I'm bullet pointing things that I want to remember to share in that story. Okay. Then I developed a good ending line that's powerful. Where am I going to land? Right. So you have your opening sentence that you will say exactly how you write it, your bullet points that add color and make sure you don't forget any of the steps along the way. Then your good ending line where um, you're going to say that exactly. Um, and let's see. So we're going to give you a few minutes to do that right now. You're going to write it down. You're going to type it out.
All right, well, hopefully that was super helpful. We promised you two different types of stories. Russell is now going to share another kind of a story. Go ahead, Russell.
Mm. It was a really hot day in the second semester that I was in Laos, where Jeff, Solemn and I were sitting around my dining room table. Um, we had been having actual Bible studies with Solemn um, and which was actually in the 5 years that that team had been there. Um, it was the first Bible study with a student, and it was our last one. And I should have been more excited, but this really the whole time I just felt like Solemn Side, who's a really vibrant student that we've been teaching, Jeff and I, in the classroom, really vibrant student. He was just seemed uninterested in what we were saying. Um, and we'd gone through from creation to Christ, and we're on the last one, and it was the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. And so we talked about how, you know, that we are all sinners, that Jesus came to die for our sins, and that he rose again um, in power and to give us new life in him. And it just seemed like still he wasn't that interested. And I was just thinking, why? I mean, this is like the best news that we could share with you. And you've been living in darkness your whole life and praying to spirits several times a day and living in fear that if you don't do the right thing, that something bad is going to happen. Um, and it's just, why would you not have a different reaction to this good news? Um, and I'd gotten it all wrong this whole time that we were studying. It wasn't that he was disinterested, he was so engaged that his personality kind of took a back seat. And he was just really processing and thinking about what God's word actually meant for him. And, we were finished with the end of that study about the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. I said, well, Psalm Sai, I mean, what do you think? And he said, Russell, if this is true, if Jesus died for my sins and I can be with him and with God in heaven forever, this changes everything. I said, yeah, Solemn Sight, it really does change everything.
I love that ending line. I get bumps every time. I've heard that story before too, and it's just like, oh, it changes everything. I love that. And that's a line that I'll remember. All right, so the story that Russell just shared is called an impact story. In the chat, tell me what stands out to you about an impact story. Dialogue. Oh, the work of God. There you go. The impact, not what Russell did, right? It wasn't about what Russell and his friend did. A changed life, different perspectives, the experience of the individual. Yeah, it's like what God was doing in somebody's life to have impact, transformation. Yes, absolutely. So it shows the impact that the ministry is having. It shows how the Holy Spirit is at work. It also communicates the impact that the partner can have as well, and it's full of hope. So, why do you think we might want to tell an impact story to potential partners? Go ahead and answer that as well in the chat. What are some of the reasons why we might want to tell an impact story to current partners as well in our newsletters, or also to new potential partners? Ooh, invite them to what God is doing, help them see our vision, show return on investment. So great, so great. Also gives credibility to the ministry that it's not just Russell that's making a difference, right? It's their God is making a difference, but they are too through their partnership. It gives credibility, return on investment. It illustrates why we're asking them to partner, and it can be really motivating because people want to be a part of impact, right? So, what impact, again, throw these in the chat. Love that you guys are participating. What impact did you hear in the story? What happened? Asked the ultimate question and responded. Yes, he understood the gospel. The student connected with the gospel, right? In a meaningful way. It changed everything. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I love that. Things that we may not see, the seeds that are planted, God knows when to bring them to fruition. And we often don't get it right, like Russell didn't get it right. I love that. That's so great. So show of hands. I can't see everybody though. Maybe thumbs ups in maybe hit a reaction. Thumbs up in the chat or thumbs up reaction or raise your hand. How many of you already have an idea of a story that you could tell for an impact story?
Hey, Deb, can I chime in?
Sure, of course you
Something
can.
that we didn't include with in this in the workshop, which I'm including now, is the definition of impact.
I
At
almost did.
Tailored, we like to say that impact is the difference the gospel makes in people's lives in both big and small ways. And it is important that you remember the small ways. Big ways are easy,
Mhm.
small ways. So, um, Solemn Side never accepted Jesus. But the gospel made a difference in his life in a small way, at least, and maybe in a big way soon. But there may be other, even smaller things that happen that make a difference in somebody's life. So don't forget those. Don't tell yourself, I don't have an impact story. How is the gospel or God made a difference in anyone's life? Not you. It's how did God do that?
Hmm.
So we are going to take a few minutes to create an impact story. And I love this format because if you need a story and you have 5 minutes, you can create a story and a really good one. So, what I want you to do now is I want you to think of a story that you'd like to tell using the same format: who, when, and where, specific incident in your opening line, bullet points, things you don't want to miss, maybe some color that you could add, then develop a good ending line. Okay. So, that's your next assignment. We're going to take a few minutes. After this, we're going to practice. Okay, great. Um, Hopefully that was just as good as the last time. I know when you practice a story, it's not perfect, but it gets better and better. So, um, we are going to be finishing up with a couple of things. The two stories that we just practiced today are really good bookends of a presentation. You want to start with your calling story and end with an impact story. But like, what about the pieces in the middle and what about the invitation to partner, right? After this training, you're going to receive an email with a handy checklist that will guide you into know what to share, and it will help draw out information like your mission, the struggles you're seeking to address, your vision, and the plan for impact to help you fill out the rest of your message, whether that's you're getting ready to go to the field or you're already on the field and kind of need to refresh what you're saying to people. Um, and in addition, we're going to close up the training in a couple of minutes, but I will be staying on to share an example presentation. Um, just you don't have to stay on, it'll be part of the recording. Um, so, first, I'd like to get some feedback. This is the first big training we've had with so many people. Jessica's going to put a link in the chat, just a couple of questions. And if you would answer those questions really quick by clicking on that form. Um, just answer those really quick, and then we'll do our very last thing to close things out. I would just really appreciate the feedback because we want to do more of these, and so would love to know what you're thinking. Just take a couple of minutes and do that for me. Thank you much. Fantastic. Thank you all. I see those coming in. Thank you for filling those out. Okay, let's just take a few minutes now as you're finishing those out. Let's take a few minutes or just a minute to reflect on what we've experienced today. And in the chat, if you would put, just answer the question, what is something in this workshop that's been helpful for you? What is something in this workshop that's been helpful for you?
I love the reminders to tell stories. Brilliant. That's great. Understanding the power of a good story.
Ending well. Love it. Thanks, Dan.
Hmm. How and why to tell stories. How easy it is to put together. Did you see that one, Russell? How
Ooh,
easy
I
it is to
love
put
that.
together. Yay. Refocusing on stories. Oh, listen to this one too. You made me write the stories, not just digest the theory, which is the best way to teach.
Oh, thanks.
Very, very great.
Yeah, I love that. Love it.
Modeling. Modeling, yay.
Yeah. Practice makes perfect. That's right.
Yeah.
We're really glad that you were able to join us for this training. And I know it's different. I know it takes being vulnerable and being willing to like step out there and do something you haven't done and meet people you haven't met. And hopefully it's been a blessing to you. Um, I would love to share an abbreviated presentation. It's not a full-blown presentation. I'd like to share an example of a presentation incorporating three types of stories: calling, need, and impact, as well as modeling an invitation to partner. If you want to stick around, I'll begin that now. But if you can't stay, understand we are past an hour. So just really, really appreciate you being with us. Is there anything that I'm missing, Deb, before I move into that?
The only thing that I was thinking about is on an impact story. A lot of people, my clients are like, I haven't been to the field yet, so I don't know what to share. It doesn't have to be your story to be a powerful story. It could be one of your teammates' stories. It just has to be true. It could also be from your organization's website. It could also be from the news. So don't let that stop you from sharing an impact story.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get started. It was the fall of 1999 when I was walking across my college campus to a chapel service. I wasn't really looking forward to this chapel service. The seats in the gym were very hard. Um, the band, we had, one of those praise bands like they did in the late 90s. Not they still don't have them, but they weren't that great. And it just reverberated in the gym. So it wasn't my favorite thing to do, but I went, and to my surprise, there was a special speaker there. Her name was Leanne, and she was with an organization that I'll call Great Commission to Asia. And she began to speak, and the strangest thing happened to me, and it felt like, and it was similar to somebody taking their hands and putting them over my ears. Um, as she was talking, it was really muffled, and I kind of make out what she was saying, but kind of not. But what was really clear was I could hear God speak to me, and I heard him say, "Russell, I want you to go to Asia, and I want you to teach English. Russell, I want you to tell students about Jesus and what he's done, and that there's good news for them." And I am sure that we had quite the conversation. I love adventure, but this would be a big step. Um, I wanted to know more details. I needed more information. Um, so it it was over that several minutes that I was talking with God about this, and then all of a sudden, as Leanne was ending her talk, it felt like those hands came off. There was no more muffle. I could hear exactly what she was saying. And I looked around. I thought, did anyone else like have this same experience? That was insane, you know? Um, and honestly, it didn't like look like anyone else had that experience, the same one that I just had. And I left that chapel service, um, knowing where God wanted me to go and what He wanted me to do. It was just me now waiting for Him to tell me when He wanted me to go. Um, Great Commission to Asia's aim is to raise up disciple makers among the educated in our countries of service to establish vibrant disciple making communities that will impact campuses, cities, regions, and even nations for Christ and his glory. Um, we have an established reputation of sending really quality teachers. Over the last 35 years, we've sent over 15,000 teachers and impacted over 1.3 million students. And this reputation has grown so strong that governments of closed countries, such as North Korea and Middle Eastern countries, are asking Great Commission to Asia to send more teachers. And I'm excited about being a part of this work in Laos. Last fall, Noah walked into the bamboo hut of one of his students and wondered why every member of the family talked with a hint of fear in their voices. Apparently, a girl in the village had unexpectedly passed out, and in spite of everything they tried, she could not wake up. Noah asked his student if there was anything that they could do. And he replied, Teacher, there are no doctors this far out from the cities, and even if there were, they wouldn't be able to help. Doctors can't help us when the spirits decide to attack us. She's at the village shaman's house because that's the only place that can help with spirits. This particular girl had consistently seen the ghost of her recently deceased grandmother in her dreams and in the shadows. It was a sign that her grandmother was lonely in death and wanted a family member to join her. Uh, she had apparently chosen her granddaughter, according to the villagers, as this would be as this was being explained, a villager came by telling everyone that the girl had suddenly awoke and confirmed it was a spirit who was trying to take her life. And we all walked over to the shaman's house to check on her and visit the family. The student leaned over and asked Noah, "Everyone here in the village is afraid. Are you afraid?" And Noah said, "No, I'm not. I serve a power greater than any spirit, and he goes with me wherever I go. I'm never alone." And the student said, "Teacher, there is no one like you in this village." Noah left the village the next day with the words of his student seared into his heart. He passed village after village, knowing they were full of people whose only hope against these attacks of the spirit were just a shaman and an altar. My vision is for people of Laos, especially students, to find hope in the one true God, Jesus Christ, and that they would honor and revere God, a God who loves them. Through teaching English, we have an opportunity to not just provide practical skill to better the lives of our students and their families, but we have an opportunity to speak truth about Christ and in their lives. Students come to college and are away from home for the first time and are really open to hearing about new things. And the relationship between student and teacher is really special. Um, and students will regularly come for advice. We might play soccer, we might get ice cream, we have meals together. And this gives me and my team a wonderful opportunity to share the good news and to introduce them to the Father. These students, actually, most excitingly enough, will likely be English teachers in their home villages and towns and spread that impact and hopefully the good news even further. It was a really hot day with Jeff Solemsai and myself sitting around my dining room table. And I should have been more excited than I was. We were actually studying the Bible with Solemsai. And this was the first Bible study with a student uh, in Laos, or in this city in Laos called Pakse, where it was. Um, the team had been there for 5 years and they'd never really broken into a student wanting to have a Bible study with them. And we'd gone from creation to Christ, studying different passages, telling the story of God's love and Him sending His Son. And every time we had this study, with Solemn Side, it seemed like he was just not interested. And Solemn Side was really vibrant, a really vibrant guy and really funny and lots of smiles. So it was just really strange and kind of disheartening that he didn't seem that engaged, right? Um, and we were at this last study, and so it was really the end. It was the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. And again, as we looked at these passages, he wasn't that engaged, or I didn't think he was that engaged. Nothing was lighting up for him. No light bulbs were going off. I was like, man, this is just not what I expected or hoped it would be. Has this been a waste of time? Um, and so at the end, I said, Solemn Side, um, what do you think? We've talked for the last several weeks. Just what do you think? He said, Russell, if this is true, if Jesus died for my sins and I can have life with God forever in heaven, this changes everything. And I said, yeah, Solemn Side, it really does change everything. I am really passionate and excited about this ministry of sharing the gospel with students in Laos. But God isn't just calling me to do that. I know He's calling others to join in that mission. And so I'm inviting families to first pray, um, to pray for students like Solemn Side, to actually pray for Solemn Side because he has yet to accept Jesus. Um, to pray for me. Um, this is hard work. And as you know, um, I struggle with some anxiety and some depression, and it's really hard. Um, and the thing that keeps me going is knowing that God has called me. But I really covet your prayers to support me and the work, and be a part of that because we know that prayer is actually what makes it's the fuel. It's not money, it's not me, it's prayer that fuels this ministry. But I'm also inviting families to invest in the ministry through financial partnership and to share the good news of Jesus with students who are lost and searching. Now, I'm raising $6,000 a month. And in an effort to reach that goal, I'm looking for a few families, I'm actually looking for five specific families to commit to $250 a month. And I was wondering if you'd be willing to be one of those families. So there you have an abbreviated version of the presentation. I hope that was helpful. Deb, I'm going to let you close in whatever way that you want to.
Okay, and that was 11 minutes.
Okay,
Very good job, Russell. That was awesome. Well,
thanks.
we're hoping that you guys are walking away with some really valuable skills and some good practice. And don't let that end here. There's another opportunity you saw in the middle of Russell's presentation that he actually shared a story that shared the needs of the people in Laos. And we want to have that story be present too, because that validates the reason for why we're going. And Russell always says the hero is only as great as the villain is bad. So share that villain so that people can root for the hero in that impact story. So you can practice to write that story out too. We'd love to have you guys join us for a coaching relationship. We want to walk alongside you. We want to empower you in your storytelling. We want to empower you with plans. We want to help you to reach your goals. So, Russell, are we offering, are we signing up for any?
Yeah,
Um,
when you filled out that type form, there was an opportunity to schedule something.
great. Okay, good.
If you didn't do that, you can always go to our website, and there's a button at the bottom of every page that says schedule a free assessment, and that's with me. And we can talk about what coaching, your situation, and how coaching with Tailored might be able to help or will be able to help to increase funding for you. So, and I think Jessica just put something in the chat.
I put the link in the chat for you too.
Great.
Okay. So
All
we'll
right.
post the video when it's ready. Share it with your colleagues. Invite them to coaching if they would like to do coaching. we consider it a privilege to walk alongside y'all on the Great Commission. So thanks for coming today, you guys, and we hope you have a wonderful holiday season.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.